For more on Quincy Jones' life and legacy, we are joined now live by CHUM 104.5 host Jamar McNeil. Jamar, thank you for being here. The first thing that we have to ask is you got a chance to be able to meet and interview who was, until yesterday, a living legend. What was that like, and what was he like?
You know, Quincy Jones's music is pretty much the soundtrack of my life. And you don't ever think that you're going to be able to stand in front of somebody that monumental and gigantic and be able to have a conversation with him. But I did, and it was one of the greatest moments of my career when we spoke about the TIFF premiere of his documentary, Quincy. He was there joined by his daughter, Rashida Jones, and she actually wrote and produced the documentary with Quincy. And what we talked about mostly was how proud he was that his daughter was able to sit and understand who he was. You know, most of us just know our parents from like our nose to the parent, but she was able to go back and really understand who her dad was and what he went through and the contribution that he made to the culture. And it was one of the proudest moments of his life, he said.
And you've been able to, because you talked about this being the soundtrack of your life, and I know I feel very much similarly. You got some things to bring, like this is just basically the history of music right here.
This is some show and tell, guys. Yeah. These are some of the things that Quincy Jones is known for best. This is Off the Wall, Michael Jackson's album, produced by Quincy Jones. This is Michael Jackson's Thriller.
The most successful album of all time still to this day.
You know, when I look at this album, I think of how many artists today, how many genres today, like K-pop, would not exist had it not been for this album and the work that Michael Jackson did with Quincy Jones. You know, the Bruno Marses, you name it. So many people who are the recipient of a culture that we now build upon, that Quincy Jones was a part of. We Are the World, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, what a movement, you know, for famine in Africa. And he brought together so many other titans to produce this record. Michael Jackson's Bad, of course, another big one, and The Dude.
The Dude.
Quincy Jones is the dude. And I mean, Quincy Jones showed us that he was a titan in jazz music. He loved the orchestra. And had it not been for people like Frank Sinatra, they gave him a shot. You know, Quincy Jones was told that a black man couldn't produce or even write for strings. Frank Sinatra gave him a shot. And he said, when they went on tour and he wasn't allowed to tour with him and go into certain clubs, he said, if he can't come in, I'm not coming in. So Quincy came in, Sammy Davis Jr. came in, and, you know, we get so many big orchestral works like the Austin Powers song soundtrack, Soul Bossa Nova. You can name it. I can't quite grasp the amount of impact this man has had on my life and on all of our lives. And he lived a very, very long life and a beautiful life, and he lives on forever through this music.
Have you ever thought about like a what-if scenario? Like, what if Quincy Jones wasn't working orchestration on The Wiz, the film rendition, and didn't meet Michael Jackson, who was playing Scarecrow? What would happen if we didn't have their collaboration for the three most successful albums from 1979 to 1988? Or just like no Soul Bossa Nova, no Austin Powers soundtrack. Just think of, like, have you ever had that moment of thought?
I can't, because that's the world I live in. It's like asking me, what if the Earth didn't exist? You know, the backdrop for the things we love the most in this culture are largely to the credit of Quincy Jones, and we are all greater for having him in our lives.
And I think we're all greater having you here to not only take us back through time a little bit, but also get a little bit of a personal slice of what it's like to have someone like that in your orbit, even for a couple of minutes.
All I have to say to everybody right now, if you really want to take a nice dive into what he did and what he means to the culture, watch the Netflix documentary, Quincy. It is a beautiful documentary. I watched it again this morning because it's so meaningful, and it's a very good explanation about what he's gone through and what he's done for so many of us.
Thank you for all you do for us, my man. As always, thank you. Jamar McNeil, host on 104.5 CHUM FM. Thank you, as always.